Alrighty, it is Monday, March 31st. Talking to my dear friend Chase. We got some news over the weekend, as we do pretty much every weekend. It feels like it's always something new every single day. This time, Donald Trump is now talking about a third term. Chase was expressing his excitement for that, so I wanted to hear a little bit more about what your feelings were and why you are excited about a Trump third term.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think one reason to kind of focus on this is um, he's been hinting at it for a while, and realistically, it, if you can get away with it, why wouldn't you? It's kind of like realistically, especially with somebody as the personality like Trump and things like that, and really figures like him do these things all the time. I mean, it was Putin, it was Erdogan, it was numerous other politicians who tried to extend their reign. Even, I mean, Xi Jinping, even the Chinese system had checks and balances and term limits for presidents. But, if you make the right arguments, you can get people to kind of give you more power and just kind of get, basically just break the Constitution. Because it's not like he said, I'm going to try to run again and I'm going to get Congress to pass it and change it. It was, there's methods for me to get in there again. Are any of the methods under the Constitution, or are we just willy-nilly like throwing whatever we want out there and like open it lands?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, for example, Vance, I guess, becomes the nominee, gets elected, and then hands it over to Trump. That's a coup. That's not, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I think this isn't something that this isn't left, right, center. This is the American Constitution and the American way of life being destroyed. Like there's no other way to describe that. And I think when you kind of put it into that perspective, people have been saying all these different things. One, they're like, people won't vote for him. And I was like, I find it funny that you think that matters at that point.
Yeah.
Like, he's not sitting there saying, I want the people to vote me in. He's not worried about that. He's scheming different ways to get in there. Um, and I mean, I think one, he's on a path that I'm not even sure maybe he does the 4 years. But if he starts a war with Greenland, I think it's time to impeach him. You know, like he makes these decisions, we need to end that quickly
Yeah.
because we're not going to, like, America is going to become a pariah. And that's not, America can't go it alone as much as you think. America alone is America defeated. So,
Yeah. I do want to get into the Greenland topic in a little bit, but I kind of want to still focus on this Trump third term thing. Um, with the trajectory that his administration is headed right now, and how the next 4 years look like. Um, do you think that the reason he's looking for a third term, do you think it's a possibility that the reason he's looking for a third term is because he sees where we're headed right now and it doesn't look good and he almost wants like a redemption shot saying like, okay, like I can fix things in a total of 8 years. 4 years, I'm having to redo everything, undo everything that Biden has done and fix everything. But when you truly see prosperity as my next 4 years. Do you think that he could come at it in that way? Do you think that's maybe one of the reasons why he's looking at a third term, or do you think it could be another reason?
I mean, I think it's the ability to be able to get away with it. And there's a sizable portion of the country who would go with it.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And it's not just like there are Republicans who will begin to jump off the train at that point, but will it be enough? I mean, the reactions underneath were just kind of comical in some ways. Some people were like, he should do this. He's the greatest president ever, all these different things. And then other people were like, he's not going to do that. People won't vote for him. And, just all these different arguments towards it. And it's really, if there's methods, he didn't expand beyond that one of JD Vance.
Yeah.
What are the other methods that they're talking about? Like I mean, it sets it up for just another constitutional crisis added amongst the other, ones. And then, a lot of people will say like the judges will stop them or all of these different things. But what is the Republicans Party approach towards judges right now who don't agree with them? To completely gut them, maybe cancel out their funding,
Try to impeach them.
impeach them. I
Yeah.
mean, will that get a vote in the like? Would actual Republicans put their name on that? I don't know.
We hope
Um,
not.
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it does seem like Johnson and is kind of pushing towards that. Um, and if he pressures them enough, they'll probably vote.
Yeah.
So if Elon comes and is like, "I'm gonna fundraise a candidate against you," they'll probably do it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there's very few Lisa Murkowskis in the Republican Party these days,
Hmm.
and some of the people who you would have thought would have been mainstream and not gone along with it probably would just agree with it. Which at that point is this is like that's who you want to support to be president forever,
Yeah.
and also like how does that play out? Because people aren't going to like that.
Yeah.
You might have the super loyal people, but it's going to just become, he's going to become in a lot of people's eyes what everybody was warning about. Um, which I mean, I think he's always been that. It's not like a thing of joy to see it happening, but
Yeah.
you see him going towards those levels of doing things. He's always been. If you ignore the rule of law in certain areas, why wouldn't you just ignore the rule of law overall?
Yeah.
You know? I do find it, this is also someone who's called for the suspension of the Constitution. So why would he even care what is in the Constitution? If you can make the argument to change the Constitution or get in some other way, if you're power hungry, that's what you're going to do.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's what's fearful. What I'm fearful of is, we look at what happened in 2020. He submitted 7 fake slate of electors that ended up being thankfully rejected by Mike Pence, that never got the certificate of ascertainment by the governor, was never approved by the General Assembly, but that Trump still tried to submit. And Trump knew he was guilty, right? Like Trump knew what he was doing was wrong, which is why instead of trying to fight it in court, he went to the Supreme Court and tried to get presidential immunity. Unfortunately, because of the way Supreme Court is set up right now, that's exactly what he got was presidential immunity. Um, and I think that like when you see things like that, when he is legitimately trying to reject the will of the people, that he saw that the majority vote, the electoral majority vote, and the popular vote were both against him. Instead of going and bowing out gracefully, he went and began starting with election denialism, and then tried to submit fake slate of electors in order to, become the president of the United States again. And I think that's what makes me fearful of like this whole third term thing, is because like we've already seen him try to deny the results of one election. What is preventing him from doing it again?
I think, unfortunately, much less.
Yeah.
Um, I do think there's going to have to be some sort of reckoning with that before 2028.
Yeah.
And also, I think that's not going to be a very strong suit. If they keep doing this argument with JD, that's going to put JD in a bad position when he's running for president. Because one, are we electing you or are we electing Donald?
Yeah.
Like that's my thing. Like you're not even that. He's not even that liked, anyways.
Yeah.
So now the issue is that thing. I think JD Vance, despite disliking him, he is very skilled at arguing and articulating his vision into something that sounds good
Yeah.
and not basically isolationist far right ideology.
Yeah.
I mean, more or less.
He's a skilled
Um,
politician. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think it's questions whether he's that skilled. Because
In
there's
terms of talking to the public, he's like good at
yeah,
crafting.
but I think there's certain things that you would have just avoided saying, or the way he comes off is, frankly, to me, just very whiny. Like, are the arguments you're making sound? Sometimes, but it's really just like, I don't know, the whole what's a man shtick, and then it becomes just complaining about everything the whole time. But I think in some ways, right now, that works really well because people are so irritated and angry, they'll accept whatever. So, they might be like, oh, he's not going to do that. I trust JD, you know, about the whole Trump thing. So it becomes, a question of who can you trust
Yeah.
to stand up to him.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's fair. So like I said, we touched a little bit on the Greenland thing just a little bit earlier. Donald Trump has said that he is not going to rule out military force in order to obtain Greenland. It sounds like he's pushing even harder than he has in the past, feel like he's been president of the United States for the past year, but in the past 2 months, it seems like he's pushing a lot harder now. It almost felt like he's talked about increasing our military force on the base in
Mhm.
Greenland. He just had JD Vance go and do a speech there and go and visit. Um, do you think that this is a bit of a distraction? Do you think that he's actually going to try to execute within the next couple months? Like, where's your mind at with Donald Trump? I mean, we never know what he's going to do. He's just so unpredictable and so sporadic. But I mean, in your opinion, like with everything that you've been seeing, where, where do you kind of see this going?
None of them are jokes anymore.
Yeah,
And the thing is, Donald Trump doesn't really joke. He makes points that he kind of just laughs at and then just moves on from. You know what I'm saying? Like it's you don't make a joke and then send your VP there who, I mean, it was an act of basically aggression if you really want to be honest about JD Vance's trip. I think the Usha trip was a little bit better. It was a little bit tamer. Also I think Usha's the only good thing in this administration, and that's saying something. But I think it's one thing to go there and try to appreciate the culture, which it was still an insult. But then JD Vance comes and basically insults Denmark and Greenland, saying Denmark hasn't taken care of them. Which is there strategic security concerns in Greenland? Sure,
yeah,
definitely is. But you don't, maybe you should go about it in a way that actually respects and approaches somebody as a co-equal. Um, Beyond the fact that Greenland doesn't even want to be a part of Denmark, so they don't want to be a part of you. Like
yeah.
you're going there, which look, Republicans and consent, it's a little difficult for them. So I understand. I understand that you're having troubles with this, but if somebody doesn't want you to do something, you can't do it.
Yeah,
Now the other issue is that Denmark has like there's no real country that could stop us if we wanted to do it.
yeah,
Now it would completely destroy the NATO alliance, and I mean I would assume it would destroy the NATO alliance. I mean you do begin to wonder whether Europe begins to kind of hedge its bets in different ways, but I wouldn't trust you at that point.
yeah,
I wouldn't make an alliance with you. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's another. I go back and forth. I'm not sure. Okay, military options are on the table. At what? At when? We have a 4-year presidency. Is he going to wait till the last minute and do it,
yeah,
or is he going to do it now? Like, what does that look like? And I think it's hard to tell. Because if you game it out, if you sit there and he's saying, okay, I'm gonna run for a third term or whatever, okay, maybe he pushes it out till then.
Yeah.
But why would you? You know, you're making all these points about promises made, promises kept, but you keep saying about, Greenland and things like that. Um, and I think, I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. What does is a military campaign us, completely basically surrounding Greenland with our ships and taking it over? Like what does that look like?
Yeah.
I don't see it happening any other way. They don't want to be a part of us. You're not going to force them. Denmark is saying it's unacceptable and basically saying, why are you talking to us like this?
Yeah.
They're sitting there saying, we're still your allies. We're your allies, but you need to respect us a little bit better. Now, obviously, that's somewhat of trying to get, a better conversation and a better relationship going between Denmark and the administration because, maybe it's just a negotiating tactic to get more security there. But I don't know. I think it would have been a better negotiating tactic to go to Greenland and say, if you're seeking independence eventually, let's work to build up your military capacity. Let's ensure that you're able to deter, threats in the region because there definitely are threats in the region, the Russian and Chinese influence and things like that. But, America doesn't look a whole lot better right now in its influence because currently Russia and China aren't directly threatening Greenland.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're the one threatening them. So why would they trust you? It's very concerning.
Yeah. Like I said, with who Donald Trump is, I don't, it's very difficult to see like where he's headed. It seems like he is kind of ramping up, conversations of overtaking Greenland. So if I had to place a bet, if I was a betting man, which I am, uh, I would put money on him showing a little more aggression within the next couple of months. It seems like something that he's like really pushing for, and I think that he needs a little bit of a distraction from what's happening with the tariffs and the extent that that's going to have a disruptor for the United States government. um, I think right now, more than anything, though, I think that we need to kind of focus on uh, what's going to happen within the next 3 months in terms of tariffs, because I think that that is going to have a huge impact on the economy. Goldman Sachs, I believe it was Goldman Sachs today, just upped their recession odds from like 13% to 25%. I think
I
that, like I
saw
said,
something like 35%, I believe.
what did you say?
I think it was 35% from
It's
tax.
25. I know it's not, I think they said it's a quarter now. But I mean, regardless, like that is,
Yeah, I mean, it's increasing.
yeah, exactly. And there's just no relief in sight, it seems like, because Donald Trump doesn't seem to be letting up on his aggression with tariffs. And like I said, I you and I have both agreed that there are benefits to tariffs, but what Donald Trump is doing right now is not easing any pressure on United States, the U.S. consumer.
Huh.
If he were to do something like this, it would have to be like right after we've really hit our target goal of 2% inflation, and we have a little bit more stabilization in terms of the economy. But he's just, I mean, if it almost feels like he's just trying to intentionally tank the economy right now, and then do it
It
early on.
really does.
Yeah,
And it's strange to me because it seems to coincide with China greatly expanding its capacity.
yeah,
Right? Like to me right now, if I was China, I would be going to Europe. And I mean, they already kind of are, going to Europe and going to other countries around the world and like trying to make partnerships around those tariffs and how they're going to impact people and kind of, I think I understand people's critiques on free trade, but
mhm,
free trade is often a very big catalyst for growth, especially when you're looking at these electric car companies from China that are just expanding their market and just basically becoming very dominant in certain fields. You know, what does America offer these days?
Yeah.
We're not going to talk to you economically because we're going to tariff you. Um, and maybe we can get some deals going. I would assume that Trump would want to make deals and not just keep the tariffs.
Hmm.
Right? Like your goal should be to change things, not just to permanently increase the price of products in the country.
Right.
Um, and in some ways, I do think if countries were smart, they would send their CEOs, they would send people to just flatter Trump completely. You kind of see, excuse me, you kind of see with like certain companies doing these things.
Hmm.
Even like I think it was, Hyundai has like 20 million or something investment and they were like touting it and like talking about it. That's what people need to do.
Yeah.
You need to show them that you're doing some sort of investments. And do I think there will be some onshoring of those factories and stuff like that? Yeah, I do think that there's going to be some sort of reaction to that.
Yeah.
But how long? And in some ways, people are going to there's going to be job loss, there's going to be production loss because specifically around the auto industry, it's going to be just basically destroying 100 years of how the auto industry is operated.
Yeah.
And there's one thing to use tariffs against enemies and against countries that are being anti-competitive, but it's a completely different one when you're like Canada, Mexico.
Our allies. Yeah.
Yeah, but even beyond that, if you were so worried about trade with Canada and Mexico, when you signed USMCA, why didn't you negotiate harder?
Yeah.
The art of the deal, right?
Right.
And I think it goes to show you in some ways that tariffs are a way in which he can make whatever argument he wants
Hmm.
and try to get whatever he wants out of it. I mean, you saw the annexing Canada conversation, right? With um, the tariffs and things like that. And then it was fentanyl and all these different things. I think it's like kind of like his answer to like, I mean, he frames it like Liberation Day. I don't understand what we're being liberated from. It seems like we're being liberated into more expensive prices.
I was about to say cheaper prices. We're being liberated from cheaper prices.
Actually, I mean, honestly, that's basically what they're arguing. I, you had was it Bennett, I think it was Commerce or no, Lutnick's Commerce, but Bennett the basically came out and was like saying, access to cheap goods isn't the American dream. And, they're all sitting there saying like these different things. And I was like, I'm confused. I thought it was like you have all the cereal brands on your shelf. And like that
Yeah.
was a big point of like, pride that they used to talk about, which like, it was always kind of a little like, okay,
Yeah.
have, you know, is there some truth that we need to bring back manufacturing here and stuff like that? For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. But I would argue that, Biden's approach where you actually invested in like new technologies was far smarter than tariffing
Yeah.
because, I even look at it in a broader terms of like, look at the EV market right now. Like, if we didn't have tariffs, we would probably be seeing some Chinese companies entering into America and frankly just seeing like an explosion within the EV sector, which you did kind of see within Biden's administration.
Yeah.
Now, part of that was just because it would have been with any president because that's the way the industry is going.
Yeah.
But I do think it's interesting that we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot by putting these tariffs there. When you're not using a scalpel, um, the reporter asked Trump the other day, what countries are you going to start with tariffs? And he said, just one or two or whatever. And the Trump says no, and the reporter asks all of them, and he's like, yeah, all of them.
Yeah.
Like in one swoop, you're just going to tariff everything. So, I mean, I don't see how this works out without it being a recession. And in some ways, I think that's the goal. I
Yeah.
really do think that's the goal. But you can't go around telling the American public you want to start a recession. You can't.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at all the major indexes. You can look at a lot of these mutual funds, right? Like the market is forward thinking, right? Like that's why you invest because the current valuations. When you invest money, it's not for the current valuations. It's with the expectation that it's going to grow and it's going to grow to be something very profitable, and give you a great return. If you look at almost every single company within the since Trump took office, uh, every single company has gone down. Every single company is not only have we lost the gains from um, when Trump took office. We've lost all of the gains and the peak of when the election was over and Trump was announced as president. Um, because there was a lot of the issue with why there was such an increase in money during that time was because there was a lot of uncertainty with who was going to win the presidency, right? Like they had it at a dead tie with both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. There was a 50-50 chance flip of the coin. So the markets were under the assumption that like it could go either way. So a lot of money was withheld. As soon as they had a guarantee on who was going to be winning the election or who was going to be the next administration, that's when you saw an influx of cash into the market. And then we hit all-time highs immediately after the election and like within the first week or two, and then it's progressively started going down, and then once the inauguration happened it started to go back up, and then since then we have seen just an absolute nosedive. And it's kind of terrifying to think like how much money the economy has lost. We've literally lost trillions and trillions of dollars, um, because of Trump's policies, and like I said, because the market is forward thinking. And um, I think that should tell everyone and give everyone an idea on what exactly we should expect the economy to look like for the next 6 to 12 months. There's going to be a lot of pain. There's going to be a lot of increase in prices. There's going to be a lot of a lot of consumer sentiment going down and people not purchasing anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that should strike fear in everyone. I was watching CNN the other day, and there was an analyst talking about how the election tomorrow is going to be a big determination on what exactly or how exactly um, the Trump administration is doing in the eyes of the American people.
Yeah.
Because Wisconsin is in fact a swing state, and so there's going to be like a lot of eyes
I'd,
on that
I'd
election.
say not just the Wisconsin, race, but also I believe both Florida races are tomorrow, the special.
Yeah,
And the fact that they're scared in a plus 30 Trump district,
yeah.
um, I mean, it kind of goes to show you, and especially I think just researching. I was watching Josh Wheel a little bit, some of his stuff, which
Mhm.
seems to be the most competitive, and the messaging was just it was great. Like there's a random Chinese flag in it. He never explains why the Chinese flag is there. It's just randomly sitting there like over his opponent's face. And it's look, I think you got to get in there and work. But I also think that if Democrats are able to deliver in a plus 30 district for Trump or where Trump won already, what does 2026 look like?
Yeah,
I mean, it's going to be crazy. Now, will they? It's most likely not going to happen. It's most likely going to be the Republican that's going to win. But the mere fact that they're having to compete in those territories like that, I think, it shows that maybe maybe what he's saying isn't going to show up because also most people's only reason for voting for Trump really is the economy.
yeah,
Like they don't like him. They don't think he's good in a lot of other things. They wish he would shut up on certain stuff, but they think he's best for the economy. Right when that completely gets canceled out, and he's like, it's just goes to show you that he's bad for the economy. I think people will begin to sour on him. I also think when you're responding to price increases and you say, I couldn't care less if auto prices go up.
right.
It really just shows you how little he cares about the average consumer. And, you know, it shows you a lack of knowledge and understanding. He's saying that with the prices going up, there's going to be an increase in demand. What are you talking about? That's not gonna happen. Like, first of all,
Yeah,
cars are already expensive. Like, just you looking to buy one or something like that, it's crazy what you're having to pay monthly and stuff like that, and
yeah,
interest rate and all that. And I think seeing somebody's response to that being, what does it matter? It really tells you all you need to know about how bad it could get,
yeah.
frankly. Um, because uh, somebody like him is not going to be affected, and most of the people around him that he's friends with
Be impacted.
they have money. They'll be fine.
Yeah,
But
that's true. Well, that is the end of time. I appreciate the conversation as always. We will be covering the election tomorrow, within the next couple days. It could be tomorrow, it could be within the next couple days. So uh, stay on the lookout for that. But I appreciate the time, Chase.
yeah, it was great.
Talk to you later.